Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to ICN's Unlocking Digital Horizons 2024. It's great to have you all join us today, and Louise and myself are your MCs today, and we'll be taking you through the day as it progresses. Today, we have our first speaker that has joined us, and that's Yellow Hat Consulting. And we're joined by Managing Director Tina Chawner and her colleague, who Louise will introduce. Tina is an award-winning change and communications professional who specializes in change management, co-design, and strategic communication. After 15 years working in government and consulting, Tina founded Yellow Hat Consulting, offering a unique approach to change. Yellow Hat supports executive leaders who are wanting to change or transform organizations through changing cultures, strategies, operating models, and digital technology. Everyone in the team is trained in change management, strategic communications, and collaborative co-design. This unique approach wins hearts and minds and accelerates the speed of change within organizations. The team has steadily grown and last year was awarded the Australian Business Award for Change Management. Tina's passionate about making an impact for her clients and helping them make enduring change at pace. In addition, Tina is also a board member at deputy chair at Baringa Early Learning Centre, and is an active supporter for women in business and enjoys spending time with her husband and 2 young children.
And also joining us is Change and Communication Senior Manager, Becky Bergman. Becky is an experienced change and communication professional, specialising in change management, strategic communication and stakeholder engagement. With a background in fast-paced, results-focused environments, in both the public and private sectors, Becky is passionate about empowering people to truly enhance culture and deliver meaningful change. Becky leads Yellow Hat Consulting's technical change pillar, delivering business change in complex environments. In her spare time, she's working through her first novel, enjoys brunching in her activewear, and loves outdoor adventures with her husband and 2 young children.
Thanks, Louise. So, without further ado, please join us in welcoming Tina and Becky to the podium. Thanks, Tina. Thanks, Becky.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much for having us.
And that was a very thorough background, wasn't it, Becky?
It was, yeah.
Well, given that intro, which was so lovely, thank you, we might kick straight into it, I reckon, and talk. And it's lovely to see we're starting with change at the beginning of the day. We sometimes see we're brought in once a change has got going. So it's really nice to see that we're starting with talking about change and change management. We might go to the next slide if that's okay. So I think then the introduction touched a little bit about who we are as a company. We started Yellow Hat Consulting because I really felt in the market that we needed a new approach to change and to supporting executives who are trying to make quite substantial change. And we're seeing a lot of it at the moment, particularly in the technology and digital change space. And our approach is unique because what we're doing is bringing together 3 capabilities. But what we did, we started 3 years ago, and we've been supporting a whole range of organisations, mostly private, mostly government, some defence, some private sector as well, and including universities as well. So it's been a real range. But each time the approach that we've taken is really about how do we put people at the heart of the strategy, so that even when people are negatively affected, how can we involve them early to make sure that we support everybody through this change and take everybody with us and try and win hearts and minds as we go, because we know that that's the most successful way of delivering change. We'll speak a little bit more maybe about our 3 capabilities a little bit later on, but I think it's important probably to start with why. Why does change management matter anyway? So Becky, I might throw over to you for the next slide.
If you can move to the next slide, please, Jack. Thank you. So research from McKinsey & Company shows that 70% of all transformations fail. So like a bike, you introduce it to people in an organization. Some people know how to ride it, some have an idea and have been on a 3-wheeler, and some have no idea whatsoever. But even once you tackle the hurdle of how to ride, your people need to know when you're riding, how long for, how far, do they wear lycra, do they wear pink, do they need a helmet, why? Like there are all of these different new processes that will differ from their current one, and what do they need to think about? So there's the bike, or there's the system, and then there's every intricate process around that system that people need to feel comfortable with or bought into. And this is why change, or managing change, matters so much. And it's such an important component for enabling organisations to realise benefits. Next slide, please, Jack. Thank you. So the benefits of investing in good change management include a holistic view of the change impacts on BAU, increase in employee engagement, increase in adoption rates, decrease in staff turnover. There's an increase in overall chance of success because you're thinking of it from the people perspective. Tina, I might throw to you for your example here.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting what you were just saying about change management. I think I was really lucky when I first fell into change management, and I was asked to take on a massive departmental and provide support to an executive who was leading a massive departmental change, which involved 85,000 staff and closing over 100 offices, a high number of redundancies, and it's not always redundancies, but part of it was a huge technology change. I think we had 87 programs of change. And I learned a lot from that experience, and it was a change. I was very lucky. It was my first ever experience of large scale change management, and it was highly successful. And by that, what I mean is we did take that holistic view. We had that view of every change that was happening and how it impacted each other. We actually, although we reduced numbers, reduced scale, which closed offices, we went from the lowest employee engagement score in government to the highest, and this was in the UK, in an 18-month period, and we were going through significant change, which it was phenomenal, incredible achievement. We got technology in and being used. And we had some lovely examples where that hadn't happened in the past. One of my favorite ones was we went and visited a lady who was very, very experienced, coming towards the end of her career, and very, very experienced. And we were really excited because it was a tax revenue organization, and she was going out on a tax visit, and she had this laptop, and we were all excited. They were brand new laptops we'd only just rolled out, and she got the laptop out with the bag, and she took the laptop and she put it back in her drawer. And we said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And she said, "This laptop." She said, it's okay, but the bag, I can put all my papers in this bag and fit it all in for my visits that I make. And the laptop went back in the drawer, and we're like, okay, something's not quite gone right here. We haven't quite managed the change right. So in the future, we learned from that. It was a great example. And so we learned from that, and we implemented a lot of technology, looked at how do we need to change the processes before we implement technology? How do we need to support people best through these processes? So we got the adoption rates massively increasing. And we managed to keep a lot of staff that we wanted to keep. There were some that we had to let go, and naturally people want to progress in their careers, but during a change it's often you see high retention rates, and sometimes it's not the people you want to let go. So that was really important to us. And I remember an ANAO report about that change, which spoke about how successful it was, even though we had dramatically decreased in size and gone through all this stuff. And when I reflect back, and we've replay to those successes in so many different organizations. And the reason it's so successful are these things. We really started with, well, what is it that business is trying to achieve? And we designed our change strategy around supporting that. We co-designed every important element, even our impact assessments, to understand how does this change impact users. We brought users in, and we co-designed those together, and we collaborated. And there's something, you can't co-design everything, you don't want to. A co-design is a really heavy investment, and so you don't want to co-design everything. So it's co-designing the right things when it matters. I love it. Think about change from day one, or as we have today, to start the day. I love it. We align leaders, and that's really important. And we do have a co-design methodology that does that quickly and really successfully. In fact, on Friday, I was working with an organization that brought together their board to align because their context has changed. Where are we going? How does that impact us? Fantastic session. Really great to see. And you have to invest in good change management. Change management isn't let's just get somebody to support us, but actually it does take good investment. It's not just anybody with these skills. We really train everybody up to make sure that we've got the best people to support organizations. Becky, I might ask you to just go into a little bit more about our Yellow Hat Way and why it's a little bit different.
Next slide, please. So next one, the Yellow Hat Way. So our services are tailored to our clients and their context, but we integrate interactive co-design workshops, strategic communication and change management. And given the scale and complexity of a large-scale transformation, circumstances often change as programs or projects are delivered. So this requires our change management programs to be agile. So we leverage models with co-design at their core to provide a methodical and consistent and holistic approach. And so, like I said, we take an agile approach to change by applying our co-design and collaborative methods and approaches to an overarching enterprise change framework. Tina, I might get you to...
No. So this is our enterprise change framework. And there's a lot behind this, so I won't be able to cover every aspect of it, but it sort of goes and starts to touch on the things that we feel are really, really critical. To us, it always starts with a strategic vision and narrative. And that has to come from leaders. And I've seen it in the past where change managers go away and write the narrative. And as soon as that happens, I know it really saddens me. My heart dies a little bit because I'm like, it's got to be the leaders. It's got to be leader-led. And they've got to come up with a narrative. And they don't have to sit there and write it, but they've got to talk about it and they've got to co-design it. And one of the most successful organizations that I've seen transform over the last few years, they started with a whole day with all 16 leaders in the room, challenging each other. What do we mean by this? Is this the right word? Is that really, we're all saying different language here. What's the right thing for us? And really, really aligning. And even to this day, that's come through. I can see it in their conversations. It's really powerful. So to me, it always starts with strategic vision and narrative.
And doing that too from the top.
Yeah, which is really important. Like, I think you've seen that on recent job spec. It is.
Yeah.
It's really, really important.
It is.
And I think how you explain that to staff is really important too. It's got to be done in a way that people can understand it, and it can't just be words. It's got to be, okay, that's what we're trying to do, so that they know how to change their behavior, which then goes to your people. And people are so important in any change. And we see all this talk about AI. We actually did a session with a different, I can talk about it because it was all on LinkedIn and social media. But we did a 2-day session with Defence recently, who are trying to figure out how do we use AI. A massive change, really, really complicated. And how do we support people to do that? And when you're talking about people, it's all different people. You've got the leadership, but then you've also got the people that are impacted by this. And there's so many people to consider and understand how it impacts them in different ways. And that's really important. Personas is a really good aspect to that, a good tool to use. I won't get too deep into these because I can get carried away because I'm quite excited about this. Culture, we love culture. So we often get brought in because we're seen as culture specialists. And we do have our own framework now as to how do you do culture change. And culture, to me, yes, it's the behaviors in an organization, but there's so many things that impact behaviors, and we often get brought in because there's a culture problem. But we have our 6 core components framework that looks right across the operating model to say, well, what are the things that are impacting your culture? Mm-hmm. Is it your governance? Is it the way are you using data in the right way? Do you have processes? Is everybody aligned on the principles of how you need to behave, and therefore your process is built around those? How's information shared? Is it easy to understand? Do you have the right people, the right capabilities? There's so much to culture. I could go on about culture all day, and I love it. We've got a maturity framework. We're starting to assess and put numbers against all these different things to help organizations try and mature their organizations and their culture. Processes here, we're talking about change management processes. And that's really important. More and more, we're seeing organizations are adopting very similar approaches to change management. And I've seen processes which are so detailed. It's a bit like project management processes. There's so many processes and templates you can use. I think sometimes we can get a bit bogged down in the processes. And to me, that can actually be quite distracting. You can be so busy writing up all these things and following all these processes. Really, what we're about is understanding the change the business wants to make, understanding the people and how they're impacted, and seeing how we can actually make the change happen.
Yeah, and simplifying along the way.
Yeah, the more you can keep it simple, I think the better, because then we can focus more on the people. And they're feeling this way, how can we make them feel comfortable again? No one likes change. I'm a change manager, and I go to the same location every time for my holiday.
But that's why we can change, right? We don't do it well, so we try to make it better for other people.
And then you've got change governance. And this is actually really important. So a lot of what we believe is change managers, we don't make many decisions at all. The leaders make the decisions. We are there to support leaders make change. And I think that the role of the change manager for me is really unique in the way we do things, because often we are there just to facilitate the change. And then any decisions we're making, we might advise people, but it really must be the leaders. And that could be the top of the organization, or it could just be the leaders of the objectives you're trying to make. That's really important to us. Tools and technology. There are so many tools that you can be using to support change management. I often say the simplest is actually the better. We don't want too many tools, but it is really important to have. There are a few that are essential that we put in place that we reuse all the time. I'll quickly talk about measurement. I'm quite passionate about measurement. My degree was actually in economics, nothing to do as such with change management, but the measurement and the data piece I really love to bring through. And this in that example I gave in the UK, we measured everything. And in a recent example, we've been working with an organization off and on for 3 years. We've actually gone through and we've done a maturity assessment. And it's fantastic to see the areas where they've really aligned and put effort and follow best practice change management. They are excelling. It's absolutely lovely to see. And the measurement's really important as an indicator as to where do we need to keep improving or not. So it's really important.
And especially in terms of realizing those benefits, like if you've got those measurement sticks there, then you can actually measure the change against them. So you can start to realize those benefits and see them over time.
Which is so important, especially when it comes back to leadership as well. Like, why do we need to invest in change management? Are we doing it properly? Have we got the adoption rates? Really important stuff. And then the iteration and growth. So our method is all around using Agile where it's appropriate to, because to me, Agile is all about as well, doing retrospectives. How have we done so far? How can we keep improving, and asking people around the business that as well. Yeah. I might stop there because I could go on about this all day, but I know we don't have much time. So Becky, I'll throw back to you.
Next slide, please. What good looks like. We've got so many examples of various projects we've worked on over the years, and we can see a few questions starting to come through, which I'm sure we'll answer as we get to Q&A. But I think for me, strategic programs that are managed from a top-down approach rather than a bottom-up approach. So what I mean is looking at that overarching program enterprise view, so you can actually see where the holes are that need to be filled. And there's one or a few clients in particular, but where we've had that leadership alignment at the top. There was one client we had, which was they were operating in a very siloed manner, and they'd experienced such a high staff turnover, and their delivery of key outcomes just wasn't there. They'd formed a new team. They were so dispersed across the country, and they just needed to align on their vision of success in order to then build out their strategic plan for the year. And so what we did was a bunch of focus groups and interviews, and really understood their current state. And so when Tina was talking about the the components that we look at across all of the governance, the processes, their culture, their people. So we looked at absolutely everything to look at why or where the holes were, where they needed that support. And I think being able to do that and then working with them in a huge co-design session, we brought together all of their leadership and all of their key leader team leads, and then they co-designed how they would then not only co-design their plan, but then they co-designed their roadmap to get there. And I think that was really powerful to then implement that change.
Yeah, nice. I think that's a great example, Becky. And I think there's been so many examples where we've then supported organizations to take forward that change. But throughout, it's the role that we've played is as a strategic advisor. And then we get in there and we'll deliver like change plans and roadmaps. And for me, one of the really powerful ones, and it's really simple things. So they were doing it all in isolation. I'll never forget all these projects, and the BAU and the change weren't actually talking to each other. So we just created a really simple roadmap and got it all up, and we did a co-design session. So well, you've got all the content, let's get it all up. And then we facilitated the conversation. It's often easier because we're external to be able to ask some difficult questions. And in this particular example, all the change was happening at their peak period. And it was the first time we could visually see it. So a lot of what we do is visual, and to see all that come together, the leadership, then we were able to pose the question. So what do you want to do? What can you afford not to make the change on now? And what do you need to go ahead with? And that to me is where you get to the crux, and you can then rapidly ramp up the change and accelerate it with loads of energy and excitement as well. I think we've run out of time, haven't we?
I think we have to.
But it's really, we get too excited and carried away, I think.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. Thanks, Tina and Becky. You've covered a lot there in a short period of time, so well done. We do have a number of questions that have come through, and so we might just get to them if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Before we jump into some of the questions, I'm just your example at the beginning, Tina, where you were working with, an organisation that had 85,000 staff. That's huge. Does the process around co-design and managing change look the same regardless of the size of the business that you're working with?
Yeah, it's fascinating you asked that, Louise, because I think we've worked with all different organisations now. Some of them 200 in size. We've got a current client that's in the private sector, and they're 160 people, but it's still the same thing. It's still okay. Well, what are we trying to become? Where are we today, and how do we close that gap?
And really breaking it down. Sorry, Tina, to jump in, but breaking it down into bite-sized pieces as well. So you've got that end goal, but then being able to get there, you need to break it down into those steps of talking to all of the various different stakeholders and understanding it in small increments.
And I think that's important because a lot of the time we find, and if the organisation I was referring to, and I can talk about it because it's all public domain, you can see it all with the ANAO, etc. It was Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. And at that time, we'd not long merged. And to be honest, in some ways, for some people, it felt like a crash of organisations coming together. And then we're trying to take all this technology and put that in place. And that point that Becky's raising about, sometimes you have to actually just let people share their experience. And it's sometimes it's tough going through change. We need to listen and empathise. But once you've done that, you know what, you can clear the decks, and then we can hit the ground running a bit faster. So yeah, I still think it's the same process, no matter what size.
Yeah, great. Okay. And so what are some of the quick wins that a smaller organisation can achieve early in their digital transformation journey to build that momentum?
That's a great question. Becky, did you want to go or do you want me to go?
Yeah, I'm happy. So I think coming back to what we were talking about earlier, to align leadership. So you've got that alignment from the top and that vision of where you want to get to. So once you've got that, and I guess as well, if you've got an opportunity for them to align on that narrative and to build that out together, then that narrative can then become those key messages to deliver that change.
Yeah, I think it's really important because if you've got a clear message, say it's an organisation that, I don't know, maybe they just want to look at AI and how can we use AI? It might be as simple as that, but why? Why do you actually want to do that? And the thing is, otherwise everyone can go off and they can all start looking at AI and how they use it and start putting it into practice. But actually you're not on the same page about, well, why do we want to do this? And what does this mean for our customers? And what level of risk do we want to accept or not accept? Like, let's just and if you align on those principles, especially in smaller organizations, you don't need as much process around an organization. As you get bigger, it's a bit more complex. For the smaller organizations, because you're all aligned in terms of, this is how we're going to do it. So as a company, as Yellow Hat, we don't have that many processes. I hope we don't anyway, because we take so much time together to be aligned. And why do we exist? We're here to make a difference to our clients. There's certain habits that we have in place, daily stand-ups. Every day we do a daily stand-up, no matter what. Weekly, we do our check-ins. There's certain rituals that we have as a team. So you don't need big processes if you're aligned.
Yeah, great. And that kind of leads nicely into this next question, guys. And it's a question from Helen Dockrell. And she's asked, when you've completed co-design and aligned leaders, how do you pragmatically touch base with the staff to support them as the program rolls out? And knowing how challenging our digital transformation has been, and we're a digital company, you kind of empathize with organizations that are going through change management in this space. And in particular, I think the staff find it incredibly difficult in some instances, because as both of you have alluded to, change is difficult, right? And often people don't want change. I agree with you, Tina. We go to the same place every year for our holiday. So you're not over to you guys. How do you keep the staff engaged in the process?
I might go first on this one, Becky, if that's all right. Just because there's something came to mind straight away on this one. And I think that comes back to the role that we play as change managers, and it's our interpretation of that role. So for me, the role of a change manager is to be completely across what the leaders want to achieve, to be completely across them what the project, obviously usually it's technology project, is delivering, and then completely in touch with the staff. So we are the ears and often the voice. So how can we, with one organization who's making significant technology change, we did focus groups. So we touch base. There was a few change champions. We often set up change champions that we'll touch base with. They might be informally change champions or explicit. We'll touch base with all the time. Oh, how's it going in your area? Oh, that's cool. How's that going? Oh, how did that message? How was that received? Cool. When that rollout happened, did you feel you had the training? Was it right? I know that's it, on top of more formalized methods of doing readiness assessments and things like that. But then as you go through, I think sometimes it's also about the leaders and the project leaders who are rolling out this change. They need to hear it too. There's no point in us just hearing it. So we'll do things like focus groups and invite the project teams in, and we'll facilitate those because people then feel comfortable. We're there. We know both sides. We're very good at facilitating conversations, and all my team have exceptional EQ, which is really probably important in making sure people feel heard and understood and supported. But that information needs to come to light. And for us, that's how do we bring that to light to the right people, I think. Becky, is there anything you'd add?
I think only that. So I guess that there are instances as well when staff have gone through some pretty significant change and they're fatigued, and then some people are just genuinely not happy and are not happy to share in forums where they've got their superiors there or even other co-workers there. So we do one-on-one interviews and as well to sort of really gauge where people are at, and in any of those instances, everything is always anonymous for us. We come back and we present the themes across the organization and how to resolve those themes. No one's ever at fault. Change is difficult for everyone. So I think it's identifying the themes of how to, to move forward.
And I think that's really good. I think because often we try and depersonalize it and we'll make it fun. Yeah. We did one with one group and it wasn't specifically a technology change, but it was a significant change to their role. And we had them fish in the feedback. So they all had to fish with magnets, fish the feedback out, and they read it out to each other and decided if they wanted to keep it or throw it away. And they accepted the majority of the feedback because it was fun and it wasn't personal. It's just feedback. It's just information.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tina and Becky. I know that we haven't got to all the questions that have been shared today, but we will take those on board and share those with Tina and Becky after this session. Thank you again, ladies. That was fantastic. Great way to start the day. We really appreciate your contribution. And joining us next is the Assistant Secretary for Data Services at the Data and Economic Analysis Centre with the Department of Home Affairs, Yvonne Seleka. So don't forget to engage and network in the lounge, or you can join in and have a conversation in the sponsor booths and check out the resources in the resource section. And we look forward to seeing you back here soon.
See you soon.